There's a misconception that we don't exist, that somehow our ability to excel at the highest level of our industry is limited, that overcoming barriers as a woman of color would be insurmountable. But what would happen if we decided to venture out on our own despite everything we're up against? I'll tell you. Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis, a healthcare consultant, consulting coach, high performance fanatic, wife, and proud girl mom. I help transform female professionals into thriving solo consultants. And just like you, I'm wearing all the hats and doing all the things. So this podcast is to empower the busy female professionals to move past fear to start and grow a successful consulting business, despite the obstacles you may encounter. We'll dive deep into consulting practice, business strategy, mindset, and more. So grab your cup of coffee or tea if that's your thing, and let's get started. Hello. Welcome to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Angelina Davis. And guess what, guys? I cannot believe we're already at the end of May. So that means that we're closing out Mental Health Awareness Month. But we know that this work doesn't stop. We keep going. As a matter of fact, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I have been walking every day for the month of May, mainly for mental health reasons. I was in a challenge and just getting out in nature, making this walk outside the vast majority of the days, and being able to be mindful of my surroundings and decompress during those times, because I often will walk in the evening. It has been such a wonderful journey, so much so that I think I have made this into a habit. So I don't plan to stop, although we are wrapping up at least our acknowledgement of Mental Health Awareness Month. But we know that this work continues to go on and on and on. And because we know we have to face a lot of these challenges on an ongoing basis, that's one of the reasons why I thought that it would be great for us to cover this whole aspect of resilience. Because in order for us to be successful in business as entrepreneurs, as consultants, women in consulting, especially women of color in consulting in this highly competitive male-dominated arena, then we really do need to begin to have more in our toolkit when it comes to resiliency. And this episode is going to be focused on that conversation and hopefully giving you some ideas as to ways that you can build a stronger toolkit for yourself so that you're able to show up in your strength for years and decades to come. You know, to be honest, there's just so much that keeps us often stressed out, right? Whether it is our laundry list of work that we have to do, all the things that may be piling up on your desk. I'm actually looking around now and looking at all of the work that I need to complete. I actually have some projects I've been working on that need to get out. Whether you are carrying the load of taking care of family or friends, being able to show up completely and wholeheartedly for the clients that you serve. There are just so many things in our lives that can bring on a lot of stress. And if we're honest, with ourselves, it's not always easy to manage that stress. I know that I get overwhelmed from time to time. That's normal. That's human. We just want to make sure, as this series of episodes has shared, not to get to the point of burnout. So when we think about resilience is actually defined as the ability to achieve a successful outcome in the face of adversity. So I want you to think about all of those difficult situations that you've been in or that you've had where you've shown up in spite of. All of those times in those corporate meetings where you sat there and had to listen to someone either completely ignore your statement or somehow not hold your contribution at its appropriate value. All of those difficult moments that you may have experienced and still manage to navigate it successfully and come out on the other side more successful and accomplished as a result of it, that is due to your ability to be resilient. And the one thing that I know to be true, and if you look in literature, this actually supports it, is that resilience is something that you can continue to develop. So even if you've had those difficult moments in the past where you have not been able to handle things the way that you've desired, you can build the muscle, the skill to become more resilient over time. And it doesn't mean that you have to put yourself through nonstop trauma. You don't have to have tons of stress and trauma in order to build resilience. There is data that says and supports the fact that you do need some, meaning that if you are completely in a situation where there is the absence of adversity or absence of these difficult or stressful moments, that doesn't necessarily contribute to your future resilience, meaning that there's a certain muscle that you have to work when you're going through these experiences that builds that level of resilience that prepares you for the next time. So there's the stress that's healthy, and then there's the stress that's not. And we want to stay away from the stress that is not. And it's okay for us to learn, adapt, be able to build from those stressors that may present themselves as challenges, but that we're able to control. Because as long as we're able to control the circumstances reasonably, and we have tools in our toolkit, such as being able to relax and be more mindful and, other stress related approaches to control and navigate that space, then the resilience is actually something that will be built over time and it will continue to get stronger and stronger as we move forward. But what I want to talk about are just really some other things that we don't often consider. Yes, we always think about taking time off. We may think about our self-care days as ways of building this time in to decompress and have the ability to manage the stressors. But those are not the only ways to build resilience. And also, you don't have to wait until everything just crumbles and falls apart for you to build that back up. You can actually be proactive when it comes to building resilience and creating a more resilient business. And for us as entrepreneurs that are starting out most often with less capital, less resources, less tools available to us for us to achieve success, we have to have some resilience, because our road, just realistically, just honestly, is going to be a little bit more rocky or steep than others. And so this resilience factor, the ability for us to be more resilient and build resilient businesses, is going to dictate our longevity in the industry altogether. So I was actually reading an article that was published by Bain & Company on getting business resilience right. And I thought that this was a wonderful read. I was kind of combing through it as I was looking through some of the information preparing for this episode. And one of the statistics that stood out for me in this particular article was that it actually said that, of course, more resilient businesses in general are going to have more successful outcomes, that more resilient firms have nearly double the survival rate, meaning that when you looked at U.S. companies and you looked at the companies that had a low resilience index, those companies only survived at a rate of 35%. Compared to 60% for those who had a higher resilience index. So when you're thinking about being able to navigate challenges within the business space, and definitely when it comes to entrepreneurship, the more resilient you are, the more resilient you build your business to be, the better. The more likely that you're going to have success and you're going to have longevity in the long term. And because that's our overall goal and mission, it's important that we find ways to proactively build a level of resilience into our businesses so that we don't have to worry about these challenges that inevitably will come taking us out. So let's walk through some of the things that you can actually implement in your consulting business right now to make it more resilient so that you are able to adapt and navigate any trouble or difficulty, I should rather say, that may come your way. A thriving consulting business is built on a solid business foundation and a consulting code that leads you toward your ideal business and your ideal lifestyle. And the great thing about this code is that it works for any type of consulting practice, whether you help clients with professional development, business management, grant writing, IT, or something entirely different. This consulting code is not rocket science and is not beyond your reach. And when you crack the code, it can jumpstart the growth of your solo consulting practice and is what you need to know to get started and land your first clients and nothing more. This is a step-by-step process I wish I had so many years ago. And that's why I wanted to share this with you and how you can do this too. So if you're interested in starting your consulting business and creating a desirable offer to generate leads for your offer and to make sales, then the consulting code is your solution. Visit www.excelatconsulting.com for more information. One of the first ways that you can build more resilience in your business is to be creative and innovative. And one of the reasons why this helps is because often we get to a point where we run into a challenge or something that is preventing us from achieving a goal. Usually when we get in those circumstances, the path that we've taken or the strategy that we're using, whatever we are doing in order to accomplish that task, is something that often has been outlined for us, or it's an approach that you have seen implemented time and time again. So we get to these points where we're trying with all of our effort and things are just not going the way that we feel they should go. We can easily become stressed, overwhelmed, and defeated, especially if you get yourself into this cycle on a hamster wheel, just trying to do all that you can to achieve the outcome of the goal. We see this a lot right now, even in the online space. There are so many people walking away from their businesses that are highly successful because they cannot figure out how to make it fit their life or their lifestyle. And so they feel trapped by their success. That's not uncommon even with careers. How often do we feel trapped by all of the success that we've had? Because you have had a lot of success, people add more to your plate, and you have an expectation of yourself to do your best work. So therefore, it creates this cycle of just never ending work, stress without reward. That is highly defeating. And that's something that can begin to wear on you over time. So being able to approach these circumstances with more creativity and innovation can make all of the difference. Because instead of beating your head against the wall, trying to make this one thing that you've been told should work out for you, you can think about how you can adapt and become more agile and take another approach that will still lead you to the end result, but maybe along a different path. That's an aspect of resilience, your ability to confront the adversity or the challenge, to see it and face it head on, and to think about how you can overcome it in a different way. So leaning into this aspect of creativity and innovation is key. And I always say that you have to get comfortable with doing things your way. This is your business. This is your business. This is your dream. This is your vision. And you do not have to follow a certain guideline or path or structure if it does not help you reach your goal. You can adapt it. Most often, especially when it comes to many of the strategies and the techniques and things that have been at least published in a lot of the books that are out on the market today for consulting, many of those approaches, yes, they work, but they have to be adapted. They have to be adapted because you're a woman, especially a woman of color in this field, and that book wasn't written for you. So when you can acknowledge that and you understand it, you become less stressed out by the fact that this method may not be working exactly as you would have thought or exactly as it has worked for somebody else when you attempt to use it. You will already be very mindful that there may be some changes that you have to make. So this is an aspect of that resilience, remaining creative and being innovative when it comes to how you approach problems that you face in your business. Do not feel like you have to follow a set unwritten rule, because you don't. This is your opportunity to create what you need in order to achieve your goal. So, creativity and innovation, that's the first thing. Now, the second one should ring home for, I think, anyone listening, because right now we're in the midst of a lot of uncertainty when it comes to economic stability overall, globally, within the US, within the entrepreneurial space, everywhere you turn. Who knows what's going to happen next? I feel like ever since the pandemic, we have just been in this world of, I don't know, roll the dice and see what happens. Is that a way to explain it? That's how I feel, at least. I feel like we're just rolling the dice and trying to figure out what's going to happen next. But overall, we do have these uncertainties around the economy, and that is going to be normal. We're going to always have those fluctuations that occur. And this can cause a lot of anxiety, because when you're thinking about stability in your business, and especially if you have yet to leave your 9 to 5 and you want to make that transition, you want to be able to see some aspect of stability and security so that you feel comfortable doing so. You want to know that you can keep the lights on. Everybody wants that security and that safety when it comes to your business or even your career. We crave that. We need that. Security is part of the basic needs. Even when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's one of the basic needs that we have. And so it's going to be something that is going to cause us anxiety when that is threatened. So one way of being able to think ahead and prepare ourselves to be more resilient if there were any type of shakeup or change when it comes to our financial resources or ability to generate revenue and money, is to make sure that you are running your business using lean systems. I am a big advocate for using lean systems. You do not need a massive team. You don't need it. If you need help, that's fine. You can delegate. You can bring on contractors for specific projects, but you do not need to have ongoing people on payroll until you get to the point where you have your finances set up and structured to be able to hold that space for them and to make sure that you can provide that stability and that security for those individuals within your business. And what happens often is that many entrepreneurs get out in this space and we hear all of this talk about delegation and outsourcing and building your team, and everybody feels as if they need a massive team in order to have a successful business. I was actually listening to a podcast by Amy Porterfield not too long ago, and I thought it was very interesting when she shared her behind the scenes of her business and building out her team structure. And it wasn't until she made millions of dollars before she ever got her small team, which I can't remember how many people she said, maybe around 5 or so. But either way, it was a very small team that she has now. Before then, up until the point of which she had reached millions, and I keep putting that S on the end because it wasn't just 1 million, it was millions of dollars, she had not brought on full-time employees. She used contractors, or she had set help or freelancers for projects and for shorter periods of time. Because you have to realize that when we make these promises and extend ourselves to cover so much financially, that's a level of stress. You have a level of added responsibility on your plate. And yes, when the money is flowing and things are good, then it's easy to do. But people fail to create the necessary protections so that you can ensure that whenever these challenges come about, if there's any type of adversity or downturn, that you can still maintain the same expenses as you would have before. In order to do that, or the best way I will argue to do that, is to make sure that you run with a lean system. keep your expenses to a minimum. If you keep your expenses to a minimum, number one, that's going to increase your profitability, which is always a great thing. But one of the reasons why that helps to increase your likelihood of success and longevity is because if there were any difficulty, financially, you will be able to maintain yourself during that time because you would not have as much overhead. So when you're able to run your business using more automations or structuring your offers in a way that it doesn't require so much added assistance and help to deliver, all of those things make it much easier for you to create a resilient business so that you're able to weather any changes or shifts, especially when it comes to finances or the economy. That's one of the major reasons why many businesses go out of business, why they fail. And so if we're able to think ahead and know that this is one of the reasons why businesses fail, therefore, I want to make sure that I have a cushion, something that is comfortable for me to maintain in terms of expenses so that I can be more resilient. If there is anything that comes my way, I will be able to handle it. It will not be a stress or a stressor that will overtake me. Those are some of the things that we want to remember. The fact that we can prepare for this resilience ahead of time, and especially when it comes to having the financial resilience that we need, making sure that we are running with a lean system, using the fewest amount of financial resources necessary to be able to run our business effectively. So I don't want you to feel like you have to do everything by yourself. That's not what I'm saying, but making sure that you hire at the right time, that you are not bringing on more expenses and other types of financial responsibilities that you cannot maintain. This is going to lift so much baggage and weight from your shoulders so that you can breathe, so that you can handle whatever challenges you may have to face without having this huge mental burden of the financial responsibilities that you have to maintain. This is an opportunity in a way to free yourself of that added stressor by making sure that you aren't creating a load that's going to be too hard to carry. And the last thing that I want to stress is the importance of having a proven playbook to follow. There is something to be said for having guidance. You know, we all work as consultants, so we're giving that advice and that guidance to other people. We know the value that we provide to businesses or to the clients that we work with. We know that we can shed light on difficult circumstances, challenges. We can tell them how to adapt. We can tell them what they need to do. We can give them strategy. We can do all of these things for everyone else. But often when it comes to our own businesses, we struggle. We struggle because in those times, we don't have guidance for ourselves. We don't have a playbook for ourselves. We don't have anything to follow. And one of the things that happens when you do have something to follow, when you do have a methodology or a framework that you're following when you're going through this building process, is that it's going to help you avoid common pitfalls. So it's not necessarily about the strategy itself, because like I said before, you may have to adapt the strategy, you may have to make modifications in order for it to fit your business and your lifestyle. But one of the things that it should help you do is to identify those circumstances or situations that can lead to a negative outcome if you don't approach it the right way. It can also give you an idea as to how to navigate your path of journey so that you avoid these stumbling blocks. Because resilience is something that, of course, is built over time based upon the adversities that we experience. However, there is a breaking point that we all have. So we don't want to build up so much adversity and build such a challenge for ourselves that we make it nearly impossible to be successful. We don't want to stand in our own way. We don't want to sabotage ourselves. And one of the ways that we can avoid that is by learning from the journeys and mistakes and experiences of others. When we have that guidance, when we have that knowledge, then we can actually map a path out for ourselves that helps us to kind of navigate around those potholes. We can get around all of that without having to take a hit. You don't have to experience the same thing that someone else did because they're able to share their experience with you. That's one of the values of having so many books as your wealth of knowledge, to just learn from some of the experiences that people have had over years and decades and been able to compile it into something for you to consume and read. But one of the things about books is that it's not going to speak to some of the challenges that may be new today, because maybe these are experiences that someone has had from the past, and therefore they're not talking about what happened, the last few years. Think about it. Who would have ever thought that we would have been in the middle of a pandemic for 3 years? Who would have thought that? No one. No one has that in a book until now. So when you get to that point where you're facing these new challenges and circumstances, then that's where we have to learn from people who are currently in it, kind of in the fire with you, but walked a few steps ahead, and begin to understand what they have been able to do to navigate that path. And that's so true for us as women in consulting, because I say this all the time, but we have to start sharing our experiences openly more often. Many of us have been through a lot. We've been through a lot in the corporate space. We've been through a lot within our businesses. We've navigated a lot of challenges with clients. We know how to overcome. We have that resilience in so many ways. And if we're able to share that more often, that's going to speak to some of the challenges that many of us as women, especially women of color, are facing right now in this industry. Most of our challenges aren't like our male counterparts. Most of the challenges are not like the challenges that our cisgender white male counterparts are facing. They have a different experience. That's not a bad thing. That's just a real thing, right? It's our reality. So sometimes we just have to share more of what we know, what we've experienced in our businesses, so that others who are coming behind us have a better understanding as to how to navigate that space and to avoid those pitfalls, so that they have more energy, they have more strength, support, focus, all of those things to withstand whatever challenges that may be coming ahead for them. And they can be more resilient as a result, because they haven't been beat down and been through the fire nonstop. They've avoided a lot of that. Because they learn from others. Just so important. It's one of the reasons why I believe so strongly in having mentors and coaches and guides, because there's so much you can learn from others, and there's so much that you can learn that helps you to avoid many of the pitfalls that you will otherwise have to face. So that is one of the biggest ways for us to remain resilient, is to also learn from the mistakes and challenges of others and avoiding a lot of those pitfalls, so that we can maintain our focus, our energy, and our enthusiasm to navigate those challenges that are unavoidable. So these 3 things are just so important for us to kind of remember. The bottom line is that resilience is something that we can develop, we can enhance, we can grow, we can build. It's a muscle that we are going to need. And I think as long as we make sure that we are focused on not just taking breaks and trying to reduce the amount of stress that we have, which is very important, but also thinking about how we take those challenges and the adversity that shows up in our journey, learn from it, adapt, and then approach our businesses and our new journey in a different way, with more creativity and innovation, with greater insight around just reducing those things that may cause us a lot of stress, such as finances, and also learning from the mistakes and challenges of others. Those things are going to be what we need in order to continue to grow and advance and reach the highest levels that I know you are meant for. So I hope you've enjoyed this series. I have really enjoyed it myself. For these episodes, I've had a chance to read up on some additional information, learn a little bit more about our field. I think sometimes we don't take time out. I know I don't always to just read some of the publications in terms of white papers that may come out specific to the consulting industry. And so it was a wonderful opportunity to kind of dive deeper into that and think about a lot of these things, how we avoid this level of burnout that has really plagued so many consultants in our field. We are fighting back against that. We're minding our mind, and we have the tools now in hand so that we can be the most resilient, amazing, successful consultants that people know, right? If you enjoyed this episode of this series, do not forget, please, please, please share it with a friend. Also, don't forget to leave your review on Apple Podcasts or your rating on Spotify. And reach out to me as always, Instagram, LinkedIn, DM me. I am there. I love to chat. And those of you who have already reached out, you know that I definitely welcome any conversation around consulting and this podcast and anything and everything, high performance, productivity. Let's see what else. You name it. Good books. But seriously, reach out, and I can't wait to talk to you guys again soon. We'll be journeying into another month. Oh, that went by fast. All right, guys, take care. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Black Girls Consult 2 podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to leave your review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share it with a friend. We're on a mission to increase the success and longevity of women in consulting, and you can help us do that. Also, I'd love to hear from you, so let's connect at Dr. Angelina Davis on Instagram or LinkedIn. And don't forget to visit excelatconsulting.com for more information to support your consulting journey. Until next time, take care.